When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
About the past and about the future.
That's right, folks. It happened. Sam Darnold was traded. I can't believe it. The Jets traded Sam Darnold like we didn't see this coming, everybody. Like we didn't see this coming. But listen, welcome back to Draftvice. Today, it is a very special, sort of special day. We are doing a midnight mock draft. But first, we'll talk a little bit about the trade that happened today, a big trade. Sam Darnold trade to the Carolina Panthers. I know, crazy, right? Sam Darnold gets traded for a 2022 second, a 2022 fourth, and a 2021 sixth rounder. I like this for the Jets. They got a lot of good value for Mr. Darnold. I listen. It's time to move on, right? That's kind of how it feels with the Jets. They're probably taking quarterback at number 2 overall. I mean, at this point, it's pretty much locked in, folks. It sounds like it's going to be Zach Wilson, because if it's not, then I think there would have been a different kind of trade up earlier on this month. So, Sam Darnold's trade to the Carolina Panthers. What does this mean for the Carolina Panthers? Are they no longer in the QB hunt? Probably, I don't know, because here's the thing. They probably know the market of what this draft's going to be, right? Currently, we know the top 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks. There's about 5 varying degrees of good quarterback in this draft, right? There's Justin Fields, there's Trevor Lawrence, there's Zach Wilson, there's Mac Jones, and there's Trey Lance. And clearly, the Panthers think that they are not going to get one of these players without trading up and expending a certain amount of assets. So to them, it was probably cheaper to expend the assets to just go ahead and trade for Sam Darnold, who is going to be on, the last year of his rookie deal plus the 5th-year option. Doesn't prevent them from drafting a guy if they fall to them at 8. It does create a little bit of a predicament, though, right? They got Teddy Bridgewater on contract, on call, ready to play for them. But I think for them, this is a good move, because if you weren't in love with the quarterback who was going to be there today, and you weren't willing to trade a first-round pick to get up to 4 for whatever guy was going to fall, you now got a quarterback for the future. Now, maybe, potentially, you were taking a shot on a quarterback of the future. Kind of like what some teams did a few years ago with Jimmy Garoppolo and the Patriots. He was a second-round pick. Derek Carr and the Raiders, the Browns and Deshaun Kaiser, Miami Dolphins and Josh Rosen. These guys did not necessarily all have to pan out, but they were options. They were opportunities. They took their shot. They fired it. It didn't always work to the best of what they were shooting for, but nonetheless, right? So Sam Darnold out of the Jets, right? They're going to be bringing in a rookie. I think all signs point to Zach Wilson as of right now. I think he's the overall favorite to go at number 2 overall. The second-round pick next year, I thought that was a lot of value for a team that seemed like they were signaling that they were absolutely going to trade Sam Darnold. There were some rumors out there that they might keep him and stick him on, have him compete in camp or have him start and then have a QB competition. I think it's a little risky. First off, it's not like Sam Darnold already knows this system. It's not like you have a guy like Alex Smith or Jimmy G who already knows what they're getting themselves into. They're walking into the year, they know the system. You at least have a starter who's you can, like, again, you will have stand and be in front of your rookie. Sam Darnold did not know this scheme. He does not know this system. Literally, you would be trying to recoup his value. Getting a second-round pick next year is amazing value. First off, there's a lot of discussions as to whether picks in this draft are really going to be all that valuable. So getting a second-round pick next year for the Jets means that you now have 2 firsts and 2 seconds in next year's draft. That's a lot of potential value to go ahead and be able to take really good players in next year's draft. With the Carolina Panthers, I don't love it as much, but I like it to a degree where I think it works for them. Especially if you really didn't think if you thought like the last 3 or the last 2 of whatever the quarterbacks were that were going to fall to you, you were not in love with them, and you were more inclined to say, listen, we'll take a second rounder next year. Maybe we'll trade Teddy Bridgewater for a pick, maybe to Denver or something. It might not be as high of a pick, but they work out a deal to get his contract more palatable to other teams. I'm sure he would be interested in that. They can recoup Sam Darnold's value, hopefully turn him into maybe if he works in Joe Brady's scheme, turn him into an actually good quarterback. The other thing is they can recoup that value from trading down in this draft now. Now they are not pressed to take a quarterback at 8 overall. If they don't want to take Mac Jones, then they don't have to take Mac Jones. And again, up until this point, it seemed like they were always keeping their ear on the tab for whatever potential quarterback might be out there for them to go ahead and take or to trade for. They were into this Matt Stafford deal. They wanted Deshaun Watson before he had some legal kerfuffles. It always seemed like they were knocking on every door to try and figure out, like, hey, where can we get a good quarterback for any kind of price? Like, they were willing to pay out the roof for Deshaun Watson before he got sued by 22 massage therapist people. Anyway, so they clearly were looking to change up the quarterback situation there. Jets weren't trading down. 49ers beat them to the trade up to number 3. And then, they're not going to get the trade with Atlanta. So even if Atlanta's not taking quarterback at number 4, odds are most teams don't trade in division. I don't know why that's a big thing. I guess because if the other team gets better, they could look at you and blame, your fans can blame you for that team getting better. I always thought that was a weird position. It depends, because if they're getting a player that you would have taken, you might agree. You might sit there and be like, see, now we got to play this guy for you. That's why you wouldn't see Deshaun Watson trade to the Jaguars. That makes sense. But to trade down from 4 to 8 to get a couple of extra picks, I don't think that was too crazy. Now I think it's going to be the other way around, though. I think the Panthers are going to be the ones trading down if one of the last few quarterbacks falls to them. Say, for instance, Trey Lance falls to them at 8. They might not take Trey Lance. They might say, listen, Patriots, we want picks next year. We're looking to build up our roster. We're looking to play a little bit. Like, we want to fix the mistakes of the past. We thought Marty Herney kind of screwed us last year. He didn't get any kind of real value for his picks. We want to go ahead and get some real value for our picks. So I kind of get what Carolina can recoup that second-round pick really easily, and I think that's really the bulk load of what they spent. It was a second-round pick. Fourth-round pick's kind of valuable, and the sixth-round is nothing. So they can get a lot of that back. Now you reunite Sam Darnold, Robbie Anderson. You get him in Joe Brady's offense. Now if Joe Brady turns Sam Darnold out from a pumpkin into a prince, he's going to go ahead and get his pick of all the head coaching jobs next year. It's going to look really good for Matt Rule and for Joe Brady going into next year if they can recoup Sam Darnold. I think Bridgewater gets traded. It doesn't sound like, but we don't know yet, right? We don't know if Darnold is out. We don't know, not Darnold. We don't know if Bridgewater's out or they can get him to take a pay cut and compete in camp. I think, though, the idea is to hopefully get Sam Darnold to play because you only have him on the last year of his rookie deal and the fifth-year option. So they can cut Bridgewater. It would save about $5 million of the cap. If somebody else signed him to a deal, they would maybe be able to recoup a little bit more money because some of the money might be offset in the contract when he signs a new contract. So they might be able to get a little bit of money back on Teddy Bridgewater, and basically the amount of money that they save from Bridgewater basically cover their contract with Sam Darnold this year, and then basically Sam Darnold's fifth-year option is probably the same as what you would have been paying Teddy Bridgewater next year. So overall, they're not totally QB neutral at this point, but at least it puts them in a position where, listen, if Sam Darnold's bad, well, you're picking probably in the top 10 next year, right? And if Sam Darnold's good and you turn Sam Darnold into what we thought Sam Darnold could be all those years ago in the NFL draft when he came out with Josh Rosen and Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson, then yes, you probably and Josh Allen, of course. Don't forget Josh Allen. So I think overall, good moves on both sides. I kind of like it more for the Jets than for the Panthers because the Jets are already figuring out their quarterback situation. They're going to go ahead and get a quarterback this year. But it gets them a pick next year. I think, again, they got a lot more value than I was expecting them to get. Granted, future second rounders are usually considered the same as getting a third rounder in this draft. I don't agree with that analysis all the time, and I don't think teams and players do. I know some teams view, a future pick as an equivalent as a discounted pick this year. So basically a third next year is like a fourth this year. I don't know how true that really turns out being in the long run, but I kind of like I like what happened with both teams. Anyway, so now does this change up the draft? Well, let's see. We have a midnight mock draft, everybody. We're going to start right away, right? It's going to be a one-rounder tonight, right? Because, people have things to do and places to be, and here's the mock in the middle. Mock in the middle with you. All right, right off the bat, Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall. We're moving beyond this pick automatically. Jets, number 2 overall. They got rid of Sam Darnold. We know they're taking quarterback. Which one, though? Well, maybe they take Mr. Justin Fields. It doesn't sound like it, right? It sounds like Justin Fields is kind of getting a little bit of hate. Dan Orlovsky, why don't you calm down, Dan Orlovsky? Why don't you stop talking to anonymous sources, Dan Orlovsky? You see, so there was a little bit of kerfluffle last week. Dan Orlovsky went on Pat McAfee's show. I've never been invited there, unfortunately. He went on Pat McAfee's show and said he was hearing whispers about Justin Fields' work ethic. Listen, you know what? Orlovsky should have shut the hell up right there, right? Because you're talking to team scouts and team people, and they're going to tell you, like, oh, this is what I heard, right? Well, first off, you don't know if that person's sending out disinformation, right? You don't know if, they think, like, hey, listen, in the 1 in a million shot that this is going to affect another team's value of that player on the board, we're going to give you this information and say he doesn't like to practice, and he likes to show up late, and he does this. And you know what? Dude, be a better, like, you're in the media. You should have better media literacy than this. And, like, maybe somebody, like, his agent should have probably said something, or somebody he works with, because, again, it's not like he was brought up in the media industry, so I get it. But, dude, that is so dangerous. And he's usually a guy who brings people up. So I was a little shocked by that, for him to go ahead and be talking about anonymous sources, talking about Justin Fields' work ethic, not discussing anything I was in particular, not telling people, like, you know what, he showed up to meeting X late one day. They didn't come to his birthday party. He likes to play baccarat on Sunday nights, after the game, and he doesn't go ahead and study film. Just like things like, if there was any kind of real thing to it, I would sit there and be like, okay, Orlovsky, like, maybe you have something here, but he didn't. And I think it was just so it was just so bad to do that. I just don't. I find that annoying, if you will. Anyway, number 2 overall. All right, we got 2 quarterbacks. Could be. I'm thinking it's Zach Wilson, because everybody's been saying it's Zach Wilson. He's actually like the overwhelming favorite now. If you wanted to bet on this, putting money on Zach Wilson might cost you a bit of. It would cost you more than it probably would be actually to bet. So Zach Wilson going 2 overall. Number 3. This is the 50-50 shot, right? There's 2 guys set to go for number 3 right now. If you look at DraftKings, it's plus 125, Justin Fields, plus 125, Mac Jones, Trey Lance is a little bit further down the list. Although it's weird, because I heard a lot of rumblings about Trey Lance, more and more so recently. I think people, because they see the offense, and I think some people, from what I understand, some people who have played with Shanahan, they refer, a lot of times they are looking at pocket mechanics, how they're throwing, throwing mechanics and pocket mechanics, and there is some argument to maybe some of the throwing motion, but I just think throwing motion gets thrown out there too much. Like, Phillip Rivers had a bad throwing motion. He played in the NFL for several years. So throwing motion's kind of weird. If it works, I don't care. Like, if it works, if the ball gets there, if he's not missing throws left and right, if he's still accurate, I don't care too much, as long as he's getting the ball to where it needs to be. Now, are there questions with Justin Fields? There's questions with every quarterback in this draft class, including the top 2 guys who already went. So I don't think it's work ethic, because Justin Fields was a big motivator in getting people to show up. Like, he really wanted the season. He was one of the big players in trying to get his conference to play this year. So I don't get this argument that he has a bad work ethic. I'd be taking Justin Fields 3 overall. I don't buy that as Mac Jones here. I think they went to Mac Jones's pro day to kind of, give you a little bit of a, like a sweetener to be like, hey, here's what we're doing. Like, try to get people off the scent, right? Because they didn't want people. What if the Jets suddenly changed their mind and they're like, you know what, we don't want Zach Wilson anymore. We want Justin Fields. He did all this work. We want Justin Fields now because he knows he's part of the QB collective. So there might have been a smokescreen there. Maybe not. Maybe, again, maybe Shanahan's just messing with people. Who knows? Anyway, 4 overall. Atlanta Falcons could go quarterback. I've heard this one thrown out there a lot. I just don't buy this one just yet. They've been taking calls on the pick at number 4. I think they're going to see how the board falls, see who gets to them at 4. So maybe if there is a quarterback they really like, you never know on draft night. If there's a player that they really like, they look at the board, they see how some of the teams have called up to come up and trade with them, and see, like, listen, we'll trade back with you for X amount in picks. So they've been doing their work, and they're probably doing their work on the teams that they think would trade up and would give them the ability to draft a player that they really like a Kyle Pitts, like a Jamar Chase, like Jalen Waddle. I don't think that the problem is, is that at this point, the Panthers aren't going to be trading up. But not that the Panthers ever really were trading up. This would be really far for the Patriots to trade up. And I think that it's really the Patriots or the Broncos. And between the Patriots and the Broncos trading up, I think the Broncos are closer. I don't know if they do it. There's a lot less. I think the Broncos are more likely to go ahead and trade for Teddy Bridgewater than they would be to trade up to 4 to get Trey Lance or Mac Jones, because I think the way they would look at Mac Jones is, oh, we're going from Drew Lock, who's not good, to a guy who also needs things wide open and who's coming out of Alabama. And listen, if he fell to them at 9, I'm not entirely discounting that they would take him or wouldn't take him, but I think it's a little bit rich to trade up to 4 for them. As far as Trey Lance, listen, would I do the trade up for Trey Lance from number 9? Maybe, because honestly, I think Trey Lance has some athleticism that just Drew Lock doesn't have. He showed some more things that Drew Lock just doesn't do. Do I think this team does it? I don't know. I think they would have been more aggressive at this point in this venture if they were trading up to 4. The team that I could see trading up, the only team I see trading up to 4, is the Patriots. I don't think they do it right now because they're at 15, but if they find a way to get a little bit higher, I could see them doing it. So at 4, I have them taking Kyle Pitts. 4 goes off the board. 5, is it Penny Sewell? Is it Jamar Chase? There's been a lot of argument about the Bengals potentially not taking Penny Sewell here, right, and waiting till the next round for the board to hit them and take an offensive lineman later on. I don't hate this idea anymore. I did, but when you look at how the wide receivers break out at the second half of the draft, there are a lot more role players. There's not a true X or there's not a true star wide receiver. You're not, at least as far as we know. I don't think Rashad Bateman's getting to them at the second round. There might be some slot speed guys that get to them in the second round. I don't know if they want to take those guys. So, yes, they could take Penny Sewell here. I think that's probably going to be the pick, but I think I said the last couple of times I'm going to go a different direction eventually with these mock drafts. And today I'm taking Jamar Chase at number 5 overall. Miami's now probably a little upset, right? They're like, wait a second. The Bengals took Jamar Chase, and the Falcons took Kyle Pitts. We're a little annoyed here. We wanted one of these guys. Because those are probably 2 of the best pass catchers in this class. Now, there's 2 more that I think are very good, right? Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, same team, also played with the quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. I would probably be leaning Jalen Waddle, depending on how teams feel about his medicals. I think that's going to be a thing in this draft because we haven't seen Jalen Waddle test. We know he's coming off an injury that kind of wrecked his season. He tried coming back for the championship game. It did not look good. He still really hasn't tested. Neither has Devontae Smith, so I think both these guys could fall. It's very possible. For Miami, they could take Penny Sewell. I would love Miami taking Penny Sewell because this would be kind of like a reminiscent maneuver. Hey, they got Laramie Tunsil in fall down. I could see Sewell being the pick here. Because, again, this is a team that, they can move Austin Jackson to the right side, move Hunt inside, move Austin Jackson to guard. So, Penny Sewell, number 3 overall, Miami Dolphins. All right, number 7 overall, Detroit Lions. They lost a bunch of guys to free agency, mostly Kenny Golladay. They did sign some wide receivers, but they're more stopgap guys, right? They lost Marvin Jones, they lost Kenny Golladay, they lost Danny Amendola. Nobody cares about Danny Amendola other than his parents and maybe his girlfriend or his wife. But 7 overall, we get the Detroit Lions. Would they take Trey Lance to compete with Jared Goff and maybe sit there for a bit? I don't think it's out of the question, but I do think a team would trade up to here. I think this is where, listen, Detroit's like, you know what? We're building up all these assets in the future. Maybe next year we'll be going, next year's draft is going to be full of a lot of talent. They could just build up this team, and then if they keep Jared Goff and he ends up turning into a different kind of fruit or vegetable, or he ends up becoming a quarterback, maybe they can recoup something out of Goff and turn him into a solid player. At 7 overall, I think there is a team that would be trading up, and this is where I would see the Patriots trading up. Now, I know the Patriots there's not the Bob Quinn connection in Detroit anymore. It's a whole new front office, but I do think that the Patriots would call up the Detroit Lions, right? NFC North, calling up the Lions. What's up? We got a first for you. We got a second for you. We got a first next year for you. And you know what? We'll even toss in a third in 2022 just to get up to 7, right? Actually, I don't even think I have to trade this much. Shit. They might not. I don't know. I don't think they have to. What if I did it with just the 1 and the 2? Accepted. All right. A first and a second, right? This is big for Detroit. Back to the sim. Patriots are up there now. They take Trey Lance, right? They get a guy to sit behind Cam Newton, a guy who's very reminiscent of Cam Newton, who also runs a play-action heavy offense, right? Kind of what they're looking to do, right? They have 2 tight ends that they just signed in free agency. They have Nelson Aguilar, the burner. They have a couple of other, Kendrick Bourne kind of fits into that style as not a burner. He's more of he's going to run, kind of an in route or an out route. He, can block in the run game, kind of be more of your split end on the line of scrimmage receiver who's going to body guys. Not even a huge receiver. He's like 6'6", not fast, but he's definitely got that ability to be like, listen, I'm going to go a solid route runner kind of guy. But again, they're going to be utilizing Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. Maybe they figure out what they're doing at wide receiver at some point, maybe even in this draft. Who knows? 8 overall, Panthers on the board. They signed Sam Darnold, right? So I think they go either tackle or wide receiver. Rashawn Slater's on the board. They kind of have a tackle issue right now, right? They just let Russell Okung leave in free agency. I could see them trading down, but again, at this point, there's just Mac Jones on the board. I don't see them taking Mac Jones after just trading for Sam Darnold, so I'm taking Rashawn Slater at 11 overall. Now, here's the thing. We can look at the Panthers trade, right, as maybe a precursor to Mac Jones won't be on the board. Because remember, we did hear rumors a while back around the Senior Bowl from Mike Tannenbaum saying that the Panthers liked Mac Jones so much that if he's there at 8, they are taking him. That was the rumor back then. I think that might be a little bit more, kind of more puff piecing a little bit. Not to say that Mac Jones won't go in the top 10. I think it's quite possible he will. But as of right now, I don't see, now that we have the Panthers drafting a tackle and trading for Sam Darnold, now that we see that, if the Falcons don't take a quarterback and the 49ers go Justin Fields, it's going to create a weird board. It's going to create a weird board as long as the Falcons don't trade out, they take Kyle Pitts, whatever's going to happen is going to be a really interesting board. 9 overall, we have the Denver Broncos. They could take Micah Parsons. It seems a little high. Last time I gave him J.C. Horn. I don't think they would take Patrick Surtain, right? I think this is a little high for Surtain. Not high. I think Surtain can go very high. I don't think Surtain fits what they want to do. I think Surtain, if they didn't sign Fuller, I just don't think Surtain would have a role in the defense, right? Because if they just signed Fuller, they signed Darby, they don't really have a role for Surtain at this spot in their defense. They could take one of the linebackers. Last time I had them taking J.C. Horn, who I think could play kind of like a slot corner kind of situation for them, and then if Fuller leaves next year, they can make him the outside corner. This time around, I'm having them take Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, a guy who could do in coverage what very few can do. He is a guy who can play linebacker and cover wide receivers in the slot. And to be able to do that is a unique skill set, a talent that Vic Fangio probably would really like. I heard people say, well, Vic Fangio hasn't really had this kind of player in his defense. And he did have Roquan Smith, who did have the coverage ability, but Roquan Smith was about 20 pounds heavier. So I think this is the shot at getting your own kind of Roquan Smith-esque kind of player. I know my cousin would be wanting them to take Micah Parsons here because Micah Parsons is about 20 pounds heavier, kind of seems a lot more Roquan-y in size and in speed. But my problem is one, we don't know what Micah Parsons can do in coverage. It's a lot of projection. Yes, he's athletic, but what he really does well is not what you would be using him in Denver's defense for. Denver's defense is not a blitz-heavy defense last time I checked. What they would be doing is a lot more, hey, we're going to drop in coverage. You're going to be making the checks and the calls. I think with Micah Parsons, yes, could he go here? Sure. Would they enjoy his athleticism? Could Vic Fangio get the best out of him? Sure. I think between the off-the-field question marks, which I don't want to go deeply into because I think I've talked about on every show that I've talked about Micah Parsons might fall, And because of the projections for what he can do at the next level and the opt-out, I just don't think he goes this high. 10 overall, write it off right now. Patrick Surtain the second. I know some people have said penciled in J.C. Horn to the Cowboys. I don't hate that idea. And in fact, I wouldn't mind doing it either. I think Surtain fits perfectly what Dan Quinn does. I probably could give him J.C. Horn. And I think it was funny because I think 2 weeks ago I did this mock and I gave J.C. Horn to the Cowboys ahead of Surtain. The next day, Surtain had a great pro day, and then I went on and did the second round. I'm like, well, I was an idiot. And then J.C. Horn had a better pro day. It was like they were fighting each other. It was a battle of the top two corners in this draft class, and now, well, two of the top three, and the top one has some injury concerns. So unfortunately, he's not going this high. 11 overall, the Giants. They've had a really intriguing offseason. They've signed Kenny Golladay and John Ross and Adoree Jackson and Leonard Williams. They extended him. They signed Danny Shelton, who's a D tackle, who's formerly of the Patriots and the Lions and the Browns and 3 or 4 teams. So, but he has familiarity with Patrick Graham's scheme and his system. And I think this is a good fit for him to go there. If I'm the Giants, I'm looking here, right? I look at defense. Azeez Ojulari's on the board. They might like Azeez because Azeez can be kind of more of a stand-up backer. You could rush him. Very much would be a fun fit in a kind of this amoeba defense that Patrick Graham kind of runs. That kind of does utilize similar concepts to a 3-4. And, he does have the ability to drop in his zone. He's not totally defunct on that. He's very good in the run game. So I could see them going Azeez Ojulari here. I know that Dave Gettleman has a defensive tackle fetish, so they could take him. Kwity Paye. I mean, Kwity Paye looks really good. I wouldn't be shocked if they took Kwity Paye. Kind of measurables. I think this is probably the ceiling for Kwity Paye. Edge rusher out of Michigan. So I kind of 260-pound guy, moves very well laterally. I could totally see them going this way. I think there's a lot of worries about taking some of the defensive players this high. I could see them going Zaven Collins, right? Zaven Collins is not going to be for everybody, right? There's been talks about Zaven Collins for some teams might be a top 15 pick. I wouldn't do it for my team, but I could totally see the Giants doing it because he fits what the Giants do, right? And the Giants don't really have that true linebacker that, I could see them going Micah Parsons, except I don't know how Dave Gettleman feels about the whole. I think they would take Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah if he was here. Like, this is where we're going to start seeing those kind of guys go. Parsons would be a good pickup here because, athletic linebacker. We know Gettleman had a little bit of experience with that when he was down in Carolina. I think, and then like I said, there's been a lot of talk about Zaven Collins potentially being a top 15 pick, that the Cowboys and the Giants might be into him. The only reason why I don't like Zaven Collins for that spot is, you spend so much money on the defense. You're going to go ahead and draft a defensive player. Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle are on the board still. Jalen Waddle, I remember Gettleman saying, like, when you draft a guy, you want to have a guy who's a gold jacket kind of level player when you draft him. This sounds like the kind of guy who he would draft. It's Jalen Waddle. He would go ahead and say, not Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. I think he would be a little worried about Jalen Waddle's red flags with the injury. They did sign Kenny Golladay. They did sign John Ross. I would also be looking heavily at offensive line here. I've done multiple mock drafts where I gave them offensive linemen. It wouldn't shock me if they took one here. The problem is Darisaw. I could see Darisaw. I could see Tevin Jenkins. Jenkins would be a very good point here because they could put him at right guard and then kick him out when Solder's gone. Right now, I gave him Devontae Smith. Maybe in another mock draft, I would give him Tevin Jenkins because I think this is where Tevin Jenkins could go. They do need offensive linemen. 12 overall, Philadelphia Eagles. I think they go defense. They could either go Jalen Waddle. They don't seem too afraid of the injury risks some years. Like Jalen Reagor was a first-round pick for him. They took Sidney Jones in the second round. They are willing to take that risk for the higher player. Jalen Waddle would be an interesting pickup. 2 first-round picks a year. 2 first-round wide receivers in a row for them. But I kind of like that move because Jalen Reagor, we're really counting on development from Jalen Hurts, right? I don't like Joe Flacco there. I don't think Joe Flacco's good at all. In fact, like I just don't. I don't get why he has a job. They could have totally went a different route than signing Joe Flacco. But the Eagles signed Joe Flacco. Could they take Mac Jones? I don't think they look at Mac Jones as an upgrade. They would have stayed in the top 10 to get Mac Jones. So I don't think they go Mac Jones route. They could go offensive line. They could go anyway because their team needs a lot. The two places I would look at here, three places I would look: Kwity Paye, edge rusher out of Michigan. Because they just seem to value defensive line a lot, especially in these kind of drafts. I think they would take an edge rusher. I could totally see Kwity Paye being the guy who they take. J.C. Horn, I don't think he fits in that Eagles defense. They're going to be running a lot more zone. You're not really getting a lot of use out of J.C. Horn in that Eagles cover 2 zone kind of situation, kind of what Eberflus does over with the Colts. So you're not really getting the true use out of J.C. Horn. I think it's Kwity Paye here, to be honest. I've talked myself into Kwity Paye. It was going to be either Kwity Paye or Jalen Waddle. I'm going Kwity Paye because it just sounds like an Eagles pick. It's what Howie Roseman does. A lot of their edge rushers and defensive linemen are getting older. It's been the same thing with their offensive line as well. I think they'll take a guy later on as far as offensive line goes, but this point in this draft, I take an edge rusher for the Eagles. 13 overall, the LA Chargers are on the board. They just lost Melvin Ingram. They also lost quite a bit. They lost Trey Turner. They have the brand new rookie quarterback, Justin Herbert, who played really well last year. Now, year 2, you want to see some development from him. Do they go defensive player? They could easily go J.C. Horn here. I think this would be a good spot for J.C. Horn. 13 overall to the Chargers. You're getting a guy who can play press man coverage. You can utilize him in matchups, kind of like a discount version of Jalen Ramsey. I could also see them going here, Jalen Waddle. I think I did that pick last week, so that's why I'm a little nervous on doing it again, just to try to give us a little bit more taste of what's on the board. They could easily go offensive linemen. Elijah Vera-Tucker's here, Samuel Cosmi, Christian Darrisaw, Tevin Jenkins. A lot of good offensive linemen on the board. I think they wait to the next round. Maybe they trade up even, because I could see the reason why I think the Chargers would wait on offensive linemen is history. They seem to not take offensive linemen in the first round. They don't like to. They'll end up signing a guy who's at the end of his career instead to play offensive lineman for them. And sometimes it works and sometimes it does not work out very well for them. I think here they either go wide receiver with Jalen Waddle or J.C. Horn. I'm going to go J.C. Horn. And now I'm going to kind of be mad that I didn't go Jalen Waddle. 14 overall. People are probably going like, how is Jalen Waddle and Mac Jones still on the board? Bruh. I think some of the times you're going to start going through these mocks and you're going to be like, wait a second, now how does this guy get to this point? 14 overall, you get the Minnesota Vikings. I think they are the floor for Kwity Paye because I think that's where he would go. Gregory Rousseau did not test really well. So basically to look at with the Vikings, I think there's 2 options. Offensive line. If there was one of the top offensive linemen there, I think they would take him, Darrisaw or Sewell. I could see them taking Jenkins, but they really don't need a right tackle. They have Brian O'Neill. They could move Brian O'Neill to left tackle, but why move a guy when you could take a left tackle like Samuel Cosmi? I think here they would go edge rushers still. I continue to believe that at 14 overall, the Minnesota Vikings would go edge rusher or D tackle. The only problem is that the options are Jalen Phillips, Jason Owe, Joseph Osai, Azeez Ojulari, Gregory Rousseau. A lot of them have question marks. So knowing the Vikings, they would probably look to trade back. Jalen Waddle's still on the board. I think they have to go offensive line. Damn it, man. I just think, like, when you look at how the board lines up, I don't think they'll take I don't think Azeez Ojulari fits the size profile what they like. Rousseau had not a great pro day. I think it's quite possible that they go corner again, especially because I think Jeff Gladney, their first-round pick from last year, just had some stuff pop up that's not great. So he might not be playing next year, so they might take a corner in this draft as well, maybe even relatively high. Barmore's the only D-tackle I could see even taking in the first round. This is still kind of relatively high for him. So what do they do? Could they take Micah Parsons? Sure, they could take Micah Parsons. Anybody could take Micah Parsons because he's Micah Parsons. Jalen Waddle's still on the board. I actually think Jalen Waddle would be a good pick here. Yeah, I think they would take the falling value, and they think they take Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle mixed up with, getting Jalen Waddle, that level of speed with Justin Jefferson, and then also Adam Thielen, you're getting guys who can get open left and right. So I kind of dig that move. And now, it gives you a year out. You can maybe trade Thielen in the future, get rid of him, get rid of his contract. You have 2 young wide receivers on rookie contracts. Given the price that wide receivers get paid, it's a very good deal. So, again, so I go Jalen Waddle at 14 overall. Detroit Lions. Oh, my God. I can't get Mac Jones anywhere. I think somebody would trade up here. They would trade up into one of these spots. Would Detroit do it again? Would Detroit trade back one more time? Is there somebody on the board that Detroit would prefer? I can give them the Steelers, who could trade up. By the way, I'm happy the Steelers did not get Sam Darnold because that would have been a nightmare. If Sam Darnold turned out to be good. The Chicago Bears would maybe trade up to get Mac Jones. I don't think they want to trade up for him. Washington could do it because you have Ryan Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke, and I don't think those guys are preventing you from taking somebody. They have a weird history of this, though, where it's like, oh, the falling value at quarterback, and they get it, and that was the whole history with Dwayne Haskins. But I think you have to... Like, the guy who was getting a lot of rumors and a lot of hype is now all of a sudden falling. So, this is kind of more of an inverse situation because Mac Jones' hype came from the Senior Bowl, which is where Daniel Jones' hype came from. I think if this is the case, offense, I don't think they take offensive line. They could take Rashad Bateman, Micah Parsons, Azeez Ojulari, Christian Barmore. I think they would go defensive line because they're very much built like the Saints and the Rams, who both kind of seem to value heavily defensive line. Those kind of picks, those kind of players like you saw with the Saints defensive line, they have Cam Jordan, they got Marcus Davenport, they just lost Sheldon Rankins, they lost a whole bunch of guys, to be honest. So I could see them going D tackle or edge rusher here. I don't know how they would feel about Azeez Ojulari, but I think that's a good spot to go. 16 overall. Arizona Cardinals are on the clock. They're looking at it. They're going like, wait, dang it. Who do we take, sir? You look at cornerback. They could take Greg Newsome. They could take Caleb Farley. They go corner. I believe in my heart of hearts the Cardinals go corner in their first pick. Farley and Newsome, there's going to be a good debate, right? Farley has not played this year. He had 2 back injuries, two back surgeries plus an ACL, I believe. So those 3 medical issues are going to probably pop up and make people feel a little nervous about him. Greg Newsome's had some injuries when he was at Northwestern, hasn't really played a full season, he doesn't have a long track record of playing. So, but I do think Greg Newsome teams are maybe more comfortable with his health issues. Edge, Rousseau, I don't think go edge. I could see them taking Micah Parsons here, Zaven Collins. Offensively, they could take a tackle or interior offensive lineman. I think they go... Yeah, I guess I got to go corner here. I'm going to go Greg Newsome. I'm going to zig where I previously zagged. 17 overall, if Tevin Jenkins is still on the board. Next time he won't be. I'll make sure of it. Tevin Jenkins to the Las Vegas Raiders. 18 overall. Miami has already taken Penei Sewell, right? So now they're looking at wide receiver. Guys who might be potentially there. So Terrence Marshall, Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Kadarius Toney. Are there guys that they could take in the next round? Sure. I think that's definitely the possibilities that they look more towards the next pick to take a wide receiver. I do think they worry that the run's going to happen. They won't be able to get one of them. They could definitely take a shot at Jason Owe, a big athletic kind of guy. Jalen Phillips, I had him go to them in the second round last time. Maybe instead they say, you know what? Screw the risk. We'll take him in the first round at 18 overall. Now we've really increased our defensive ability because now we have a true pass rusher opposite our boy on the other side. They could take Azeez Ojulari Because again, like I said, Flores' defense very similar to Patrick Graham's defense, where they'll be playing a lot of that amoeba defense and also having that outside linebacker who can rush off the edge. I'm mixed between Azeez Ojulari, Jalen Phillips, and Jason Owe here. I'm gonna go with. I think they can absorb the risk from missing on Jalen Phillips if he has the injury concern. So I'm gonna have him go Jalen Phillips, 18 overall. I did say previously, and I do mean this. The concussion issues are a real issue. It's a real concern for a lot of teams, and I get why teams would be very worried about it. Because again, you have 1/3 of a shot of this player working out for you. But again, Jalen Phillips is just the best edge rusher in this class. If he did not have the concussion issues, he would go top 10. So there you go. 19 overall, Washington football team. Tons of offensive linemen still on the board. They could take Micah Parsons. This is again I wonder if Ron Rivera would dig Micah Parsons here. I think Micah Parsons to Ron Rivera's defense would be quite the addition, right? They could also go offensive line. I think they maybe in the second round they try to trade up and get one of the offensive linemen that are still falling. They got decent play out of their offensive line last year, and also having Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of makes your team a little bit of offensive line. He's done well behind worse offensive lines than this. So I think they go Micah Parsons, Penn State. 20 overall, Chicago Bears. It's hard not to say Mac Jones here, right? I think it's got to be Mac Jones here. I could see them taking offensive linemen here. Rashad Bateman's another option here, wide receiver. Elijah Vera Tucker. Unfortunately, I think Elijah Vera Tucker is going to be purely a guard at the next level, just because, he played tackle last year at USC, but he even started at guard the year before that. He seems to just be built better as a guard for the NFL. So I don't think they have real needs at guard necessarily as far as tackle is their real concern. That means Christian Darrisaw be. They need a tackle. So I'm thinking Darrisaw. The Chicago Bears. Colts are on the board. Everybody's confused as to why I still have Mac Jones on the board. This is a weird fall, but sometimes these things happen where there's a guy who's a falling guy who just listen, everybody hyped him up, and now we are at the point where he kind of fell back to where we thought he would go in the NFL draft. 21 overall, the Colts are on the board. I mean, they have to take a tackle, and Samuel Cosme's here. So usually I'd have him taking Eichenberg. This time around, I'd give him Samuel Cosme, more athletic tackle, guy who has a little bit higher upside. I don't know if I really agree with the upside of tackle argument. Eichenberg, I think some of the question marks with Eichenberg is the arm length. I know some teams might shy away from that. They could take Dylan Radins. Spencer Brown tested out of his freaking mind. There's very much a reminiscence of Colton Miller going much earlier than people thought Colton Miller should go a few years ago. After he tested out of his mind, he turned out to be a very good pickup. So Spencer Brown could go, for a tackle for one of these teams. Alex Leatherwood, I think a lot more teams are projecting him at guard because he sometimes oversets to the outside, and then he'll get beat on the inside. He doesn't have the foot quickness to go ahead and beat guys on the outside sometimes. So I think he's going to be a guy that teams look at potentially kicking into guard. At 22, the Tennessee Titans are on the board. They could also use a tackle, so Alex Leatherwood is definitely an option here, as is Liam Eichenberg, as is Jalen Mayfield and Spencer Brown, Dylan Radins. They also might look at wide receiver. Rashad Bateman's there. I think they have a bigger need right now at wide receiver. That's why they signed Kendall Lamb and cut Dennis Kelly, because they thought Kendall Lamb could be their right tackle for the time being. Okay, go ahead. I actually kind of don't mind that idea. 23 overall, the Jets are on the board. Wide receivers broken out with all the top four guys are gone. Kadarius Toney's here, Terrence Marshall, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, Monroe St. Brown, Amari Rogers. There's a lot of Diami Brown, Dwayne Eskridge. I like Eskridge, but not at this spot, not in the first round. That'd be nuts. Not for a 24-year-old who only kind of recently came on the scene. 23 overall. I think they can look edge rusher here still. They could take Jason Owe. Did Zizo Jalari went? They could take Jason Owe. I think he'd be a good 4-3 end, kind of fitting what Saleh does with his defense. Gregory Rousseau, again, I think teams are going to shy away from him as of right now. They could take corner, especially because their corner room is kind of a little bit of a mess. I think they wait to the second and third round to go ahead and draft some big long corners to kind of be like the Emmanuel Mosleys and the Akila Witherspoons of their defense, to kind of be like the tall, lanky guys on the outside. Linebacker did not. I don't think it would take a linebacker here. Rousseau, Owe, Osai, Perkins, Carlos Basham. Carlos Basham would be a good pickup for them. I don't think they would go Basham. I think this is where I'm going to end up having the Jets take Jason Owe. High upside, elite athlete at 4-3 end, to pair with Carl Lawson, to pair with Quinnen Williams. Now you have a defensive line that is stacked. You have a rotation that includes Vinny Curry there as well. He can even kick in sometimes. Yeah, that's a really good defensive line. You have now turned that defensive line into a weapon, everybody. 24 overall, the Steelers are on the board. They're basically looking at all the offensive linemen that are left, right? Eichenberg, Jalen Mayfield, Leatherwood. I think if it broke this way, I think they would still go Leatherwood. I think they like Leatherwood. There's a lot of people who... I think they would also possibly go Eichenberg because they do have that connection with Notre Dame. They have Chase Claypool. They take a lot of guys from that region. But this time around, I have them take Alex Leatherwood. Maybe if Liam Eichenberg fell again, they would take Eichenberg. But I also think it's a team that might get a little nervous about the arm length issue for Eichenberg. Jaguars are on the board. They're drafting at 25. They could be taking Dylan Radins. They could be taking offensive line. Would be fine here for them. I don't think they're pushed to take offensive line, so they might wait till their top of the second round pick. Defensively, again, they could easily take Trayvon Moehrig. I think this has been a big pick for them at 26 a lot of the time. They could be the team that takes Zaven Collins. They could take Christian Barmore. That they signed like 3 D tackles. So I don't know if they, and in fact lost one of them because that deal never ended up getting actually worked out. They're very familiar with Gregory Rousseau, so they maybe be able to take him and see how he works as an edge rusher for them. Offensively, again, this is kind of where the offense kind of dies out. Defensively, safety, Trayvon Moehrig gets mocked here a lot. I don't want to do that again. I think they could take the risk on Caleb Farley. Again, this is a team that has multiple premium picks. Getting a guy like Caleb Farley at the end of the first round, you're now getting to replace the guy you had in Jalen Ramsey. You have C.J. Henderson. You can play a lot of man coverage now. I think this is, even if you have Shaq Griffin, it's weird because I think the guy who's the odd man out in the scheme would be Shaq Griffin, but at this stage, if you didn't know you were going to get Caleb Farley at a discount. So now you have 3 very good corners. I don't think any of them really can be slot corners right now, but guys get injured, guys get traded. Again, I could have seen them taking Trayvon Moehrig. I think, again, you have that top of the second round pick. You don't necessarily have to burn it on a safety. I think you take a position that has a higher contract value in cornerback. Caleb Farley, 25 overall. 26. Cleveland Browns, my God, this did not work out very well. Edge rusher, Gregory Rousseau, Joseph Osai. I don't care much for either of those dudes, to be honest. Rousseau beat up a lot of guards and centers and didn't always work well coming off the edge, trying to beat tackles. Joseph Osai, young guy, athletic guy. I kind of dig him as an edge rusher. Ronnie Perkins, strangely less athletic, but a lot of able to utilize length and strength, and looks kind of like a linebacker a little bit. Carlos Basham I dig, but I think he's outside the age range of guys that they would take, but athletic profile is very good. His tape's pretty solid. He had better 2019 and 2018 tape, but even his 2020 tape shows that he can be a very good player in the NFL. I don't think any of the other edge rushers they would take. Zaven Collins has been talked about a lot to them there. Fetu Melifonwu, Asante Samuel, D-tackle Barmore, man. I don't hate it. I like it. I'm one of those guys who's a pretty solid Barmore fan. I think they would go Christian Barmore here. So, yeah, Christian Barmore, 26. Honestly, if it came down to this, I think they would trade down. I'm not going to do a lot of trading down in this one either. I think this is kind of it's going to get a little long-winded if I sit there trying to figure out what am I going to do for a trade, everybody. So, 27 overall. The Baltimore Ravens. Defensively, look at safety. Trayvon Morg's still on the board. I think this is perfect for him. They've kind of needed a safety for a while, especially after Earl Thomas was basically kicked out of the building for, I don't know, whatever fight he got into. So Trayvon Moore, they could definitely go wide receiver here. That Sammy Watkins signing does not prevent them from going ahead and drafting a wide receiver. In fact, I think it kind of pushes them to draft another one. But there's not one here that I would feel comfortable with, so I think they take one in the second round. 28 overall, the Saints. Oh, shoot. I think this is where Mac Jones comes off the board because they could have Mac Jones in the building. And then, again, they could turn to Jameis like, we didn't know he would be here, so we just thought we'd take him and see what happens. So now the Saints have 3 quarterbacks in their quarterback room, but one kind of plays tight end for them in Taysom Hill. I think this gives the Saints a lot of leeway, and they might be the team that tries to maneuver to get Mac Jones. Yes, we could have easily saw the Steelers take Mac Jones, but you had Ben Roethlisberger come back for his finale. Taking a quarterback in the first round when Ben Roethlisberger's coming back, you lost a lot of assets. And again, the Steelers could also go different directions at 24. I think cornerback's another option, or even edge rusher's been mentioned before. 29 overall. The Green Bay Packers, wide receiver we'll look at first. Terrence Marshall Jr. is a pretty solid pick here. Tested really well. His 2019 tape's a lot better than his 2020 tape. I think a lot of people wonder if not having Joe Burrow hurt him in 2020 and also not having the other wide receivers in Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. It's kind of like when you are the third guy out on the wide receiving core where the other 2 guys are Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but also when your quarterback is Joe Burrow, like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to make the argument for or against Terrence Marshall. He definitely looked a lot better, and he was much better as an outside receiver than he was as a slot receiver. They tried to utilize him more as a slot receiver. I think taking him here would be fine. I would be okay with it. I think the Packers fan base would be interested in it. I think this might be a little high for him. Personally, Elijah Moore and Rondale Moore both have a lot of speed. Use it differently a little bit. Rondale Moore has some injury question marks. Elijah Moore has some size question marks. Never really played on the outside. So I think there's going to be a lot of questions if he could match up as a split end or as a flanker. Is he only going to be able to play in the slot? I think you can manufacture touches to him. I would totally take Elijah Moore. I don't know if I would take him at 29, though. Defensively, I think I always have him taking defense here. And I think there's a reason. And they could probably either go corner with a Fetu Melifonwu, Asante Samuel, Eric Stokes. I think Eric Stokes is going to get pushed up some boards. I think this is maybe where Stokes goes. They did sign Kevin King to a 1-year deal. I don't think it prevents him from doing anything. Yeah, you know what? Eric Stokes. I think that's a good spot for him. They could also take Tyson Campbell, the other Georgia cornerback. That would be a good spot for him as well. Buffalo's on the board. They could take corner as well. This could be the big corner run. Tyson Campbell, Asante Samuel, Paulson Adebo. I think it's really high for Paulson Adebo. But Carlos Basham Jr., they did draft a couple of D linemen over the years. They also have Jerry Hughes, but nothing's ever really panned out for them at edge rusher opposite Jerry Hughes. Brandon Oliver really hasn't been the real pass rusher that they wanted him to be. So I think they could easily go Carlos Basham here. They would get a guy on the opposite side of Jerry Hughes, could maybe even try kicking him into 3-tech on rushing downs, like as a NASCAR package. That would totally be doable. He's never really shown that too much, but he has the athleticism and the build to be quite the unusual but high upside player. 31 overall, Kansas City Chiefs are on the board. Got to go offensive lineman, right? They went through all the offensive lineman stuff this year. Jalen Mayfield, Liam Eichenberg, Dylan Radins, Spencer Brown. I think they take Eichenberg as a solid starter at the left tackle position. And that way they can go into the season feeling comfortable about their offensive line. It's going to be a different offensive line with a lot more value on the interior than on the exterior, on the tackle position. But we've seen that work before, and I think that's kind of what their plan is going forward. 32 overall, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Gregor Rousseau's still on the board. Elijah Vera-Tucker. Elijah Vera-Tucker falling this far, I think a lot of people are going to be confused about. But again, if teams only see him as a guard, they might look at him and say, you know what, like we might not go with you. We think we're fine without you. I think Elijah Vera Tucker would be a good pickup for them to, if they need to plug in another interior offensive lineman. There's been a lot of talk about them maybe taking Najee Harris or Travis Etienne, running backs. Okay, that's a fun idea, but let's maybe avoid doing that for right now. They could take Creed Humphrey. Let's see. Seems a little high for him. Defensively, Joseph Osai would be a good pickup for them here because they would get a guy who's a young, athletic dude and maybe replace Jason Pierre-Paul. I think I did that last time. So I think this time around I'm going to take Elijah Vera Tucker, USC. I don't usually have him going at 32 overall. And yeah, that's the midnight mock draft, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Quick rundown of this mock draft real quick. Years. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. You can follow the podcast at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. You can follow me at BROJO. Death is in the end of life. Punch a delicious drink you drink in the summer. And tune in on Thursdays. I'm on Face Off with Facemeyer with Brenda Facemeyer. And like, follow, subscribe. Leave some stuff in the chat so maybe next time I can go ahead and jump out to you and be like, yo, what up, buddy? And then I could be like, yo, we did this thing tonight, and I talked to this person. So, yes, thank you for tuning in. Have a nice week. Have a nice week. Did that not? I didn't. Sorry.
We're on to something.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
About the past and about the future.